Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
All right, check one, check two. This is it. Welcome to the Cannabis Coffee Hour with your host, me, Rob Cantrell. Oh man, I got an exciting episode, a great episode. If you love weed, if you love comedy, if you love films, this is the episode you need to tune into. My special guest, one of my good friends, always been there for me. He's been on the Trailer Park Boys. He's had his own film called Super High Me. He was in the Lego Batman movie. He was in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Give it up to one of the most interesting, funny, and stonedest dudes I know, Mr. Doug Benson.
Yay!
Yo, Doug.
How's it going, Rob?
It's going great, man. It's going great. It's weird for me to run the podcast because I'm always doing your podcast. Doug was pretty much the pioneer of a lot of the podcasts, but film trivia, I don't know. I don't know anybody else. Was anybody else doing a film trivia before you, Doug?
I don't know. I don't think before me, but there's certainly a lot of that kind of stuff now. There's a million podcasts now. So
yeah.
Whatever your niche is, you could probably find a podcast. Especially if you're into dudes sitting around talking, there's lots of those available.
Yeah, man. It's it's just the technology now. It's kind of cool that everybody should be going towards what they're interested in, and you just had that early on. And I've known you, I don't know, since 2003, 2002, maybe. No, 2003, 4, 5 is about the time. No, right before Last Comic Standing, we hung out a few times. But you always, the thing about Doug Benson is I knew him as a stand-up comic. He was on Friends, he was on Comedy Central, and we all smoked weed. And then he did the marijuana logs with two San Francisco buddies of mine that they were legends when I started out, Tony Kameen and Mr. Arj Barker. And they did the marijuana logs. But what I found awesome about you, I was just thinking about you, Doug, today, and I just want to let people out there in the universe know, like something told you that you were going to go the weed lane. And the story I heard was, didn't you sit, I mean, I could be wrong because I smoke a lot of weed and, but was there this story that you sat down and actually like wrote your parents and friends like, yo, I'm going all in? Because weed was kind of illegal and it was like, I don't know, 2003, not in California, but wasn't there a turning point for you, Doug? Would you say that you were just like, let's go all green, baby?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, the marijuana logs was a huge part of that transition. But prior to that, I had just been like, screw it. I like weed. So I'm going to, be high on stage in my stand-up and talk about it and talk about weed. And everybody responded so positively to it that that just sort of encouraged me to keep going, even though, in the long run, I guess it could have, I don't even know what ways it may have hurt me to be so out front about weed and being high all the time. But, it feels like it's all worked out pretty well.
Oh, it's worked out great, Doug. You're a legend, man. You're a legend, kid. You don't even know it. And you got a fat bong. What kind of, this is the Cannabis Coffee Hour. I like to keep it simple and down to basics, morning rituals. Today, everybody, I'm doing this late. I have grapefruit sparkling water, and then I have my glass one. This is from Marley One Hitters. It's wooden and glass. I love this one hitter. And you have a nice fat bong. That's a new one. That's a nice green 1 foot glass.
Yeah, this is from some people named, the piece is called Encore, or it's from a company called Encore. I always get confused when they name them. But it's nice because it's green, and then it's got this black thing around here at the bottom. So like, even when it gets really dirty, it's not as disgusting as when you have a nice clean glass bowl that gets filthy. Like I have this guy that I love, this little bubbler, but it just gets so dirty. Like it's due for a cleaning. I need to get some Formula 420, and you put it in the bag and then you just shake it, and the Formula 420 is like sand. It gets in there and it just cleans out all that disgusting brown and yellow.
I know, the bong resin. The only thing about weed is that it runs out and that you have to clean out pipes. It's just like, but it's a part of the gig. It's a lot like if you're going to smoke, it's a lot like brushing your teeth. You should clean out your pipes. I've been really good about my pipes too, dude. And you're right, Formula 420, there's other shit out there, but whoever came up with those blue crack rocks is a genius. It's literally, it cleans glass beautifully. And I actually met the dude at High Times. He was already a millionaire. I think he sold it off, but I met him, but he seemed just like a stoner that like came up with some shit in his kitchen and the shit worked.
Yeah, because you just shake it up in a bag for a minute or two, whereas some of the other glass cleaners out there want you to soak pieces in it overnight. Yeah. So I'm all about the Formula 420. This thing was yellow as fuck. It was like completely disgusting, and I just cleaned it the other day with Formula 420.
Lots of plaque.
Look how beautiful it is.
Oh, it's beautiful. It looks like a vase. It looks like you're a classy vase. You need a tulip, a couple roses, my man. Bongs are you going? I'm going through a one-hitter phase, glass one-hitter phase. But I had a 3-foot bong in college. Like I'm a classic old school bong hit cat. Are you going through just a classic bong rip phase?
Well, I'm just home all the time. When you get out on the road, you don't really. It's harder to bring bongs with you. But in some cases, I still do. I'll just pack it up. In some towels or something, and so it doesn't get broken. But I'm just really into glass at home, and this company Graf has been sending me lots of different pieces, and they're going to send me some. Yeah, they're sending me some of their glass pre-rolls, and so I'm excited to get those.
Oh, that's sick. Those guys are amazing. And yeah, you got to keep your bongs clean, but you can't. But nowadays, this was the word I heard out of JFK. They're not shaking down. Like you can have 2 ounces of weed on you flying out of New York now. Was like the word the last time I heard, like last week. And soon. Yeah. But California's always been wide open. But I remember the first week I was in LA, I was with Dan Gabriel and Edwin San Juan in front of the Laugh Factory. And we were doing bong hits in the back of a hatchback car, like right on Hollywood Boulevard. And I thought that was the craziest shit. I was like, oh, and it is still pretty crazy. And it was pretty funny too. Like, because back then everybody was like hiding out. But these dudes that were doing bong rips in the back seat of a car, like right before doing their sets.
Yeah, and I like the way you said Hollywood Boulevard.
That's the right street? It's been a while since I've been in LA, but I did some weed smoking there.
Laugh Factory's on Sunset, but close enough.
Yeah, it's on Sunset.
What the fuck is happening with this? I'm having issues with this bong. Hollywood has been pretty chill for a long time. I like just walk around smoking wherever, and I haven't gotten in any trouble. Yeah, people can talk shit about California all they want, but at the end of the day, California has always been ahead of the game when it comes to herb. And it just has. I don't care. I mean, Colorado, when it got legalized, it sprung up. And I used to get weed in Colorado. My friends lived in Aspen right after college, and I visited them a couple times, and I got amazing weed. But it wasn't the same as when I went to San Francisco. It's just the culture,
like all those bands and musicians and the Fillmore and Golden Gate Park, like hippies been smoking weed like there since the beatniks, since the 1950s. You know, American culture in terms of cannabis all kind of stems. I mean, it really, not, I can't say it started there, but it definitely took root.
Yeah, well, that's, you know, the Bay Area is where I got, you know, got indoctrinated, got into cannabis, because all my Bay Area comedy friends, I'd come up from LA and visit them, and they were pretty much all of them were into weed, so it was pretty prevalent. And then that's really how I got into it. You know, I was a late bloomer.
Yeah,
I didn't really get into weed till my late 20s.
It's fascinating because Doug Benson is originally, I'm talking like you're not here, but you're originally from, I know you well, but you're originally from San Diego, and you always were down for showbiz. Like that's what I wanted to talk about, or your early acting career, because I've done a little acting and I wasn't a theater kid, but I do dig it. Like I am been enjoying, it's a challenge and cool, and going on set is a thrill and shit like that. But you had your eye on the prize in terms of movies and TV right out of high school. Doug like left high school maybe, and then you went right up to LA and started auditioning for shit and doing stand-up eventually. Is that true?
Yeah, I just sort of, you know, I tried junior college for a few years, and just sort of realized, you know, I wasn't a good student in high school, so
Me neither.
College wasn't going to be my thing really. And then in junior college, the idea was, oh, I'll just get great grades there and then transfer somewhere cool. But it's still, I wasn't going to get, you know, I was getting perfect grades at junior college, but that doesn't mean shit to like the UCLA, USC, places like that I thought I wanted to go to. They, you know, is, you know, I just didn't have the money, and I just didn't have the,
Dude,
you know.
I get it. No, I was never, I mean, I had to work really hard to get over 1,000 on the SAT. I was always a C student that had to work hard to get a B or an A, so I wouldn't make my mom sad. Like I always, and I wouldn't pull it off. Sometimes I would totally be a C student. You know, I was definitely, my mind, I think I was always a creative person, as I think you are, as our careers over these years that we've been doing stand-up. You cannot not be creative and do stand-up. Yeah, and it's kind of cool that you just knew, you were just like, I want to get into this, because you were doing some acting in high school. Like you said, were you with the theater kids?
Yeah, I was always a theater kid, like every stage, and especially high school, because the high school I went to was very, very good as far as the arts. Like, you know, that's why my grades were so bad, because I would miss so many classes for the school paper and debate and choir and drama and, you know, being in plays and musicals and stuff. And like, I was just kind of like the kid in the movie Rushmore. I was just like super into all the extracurriculars and paying no attention to anything else. So
and a little social too.
Yeah. Well, then I just decided out of you know, while I was in junior college, to just start going up to LA and just start trying to do what I want to do. And I realized that, you know, no one's going to ask for a degree to, you know, be in a movie or write a movie or have anything to do with movie making, really. And then on top of that, once I was in LA for a few months, it was just too in my face that you could just get up and do stand-up comedy somewhere. You know, there were so many potlucks and open mics that some friends of mine, you know, pushed me into going up at the store. And I was a huge fan of stand-up comedy. I didn't think I could do it because of how much I admired the people that did do it.
Yeah.
I thought I can't be like them. So
yeah.
So that first time, just getting any laughs at all, the first time I went on stage was just all the encouragement I needed. I'm like, oh, if somebody that's never done it can get some laughs, you know, this might work out. You know, then 6 years later, I started getting paid to do stand up. Like, you know, I had to do a lot of extra work and stand-in work and stuff in LA to, keep my head above water and make rent, and also get to do, some stand-up at night. But you know how that can be, like, it's hard to have day jobs, especially long hours, and then also have the energy to go out to the clubs and do spots,
Yeah, there's just really no easy way, but starting in LA is brutal. Like I really don't think I would have made it if I started in LA. I don't think I would have made it. Not that I've made it, but I haven't lasted this long, but I love what I do and I'm proud of what I've done. So, it's all gravy from here. But yeah, starting in LA or starting in New York is really fucking hard. And yeah, kudos to you. And you started going out for auditions. Yeah. But your first set at the Comedy Store, that's pretty heavy, dude.
Yeah, and when I walked off stage, Louis Anderson was sitting in the back, and he was like, I don't know the exact quote, but it was just something like, "You had some funny stuff," or just something encouraging. It's just like, it's those moments that can really, keep you in the game in the early going, because it's just so easy. It's so easy to not do stand up.
It's so hard. It's so hard.
It's easy to just not get up there, like just watch it or whatever. And
yeah, because you're gonna eat a dick and it's hard and you're not gonna get paid and nobody wants to listen to you. But if you have somebody, and the thing about Louis Anderson was a huge star, he was the 80s. I remember him killing it. I wasn't a huge comedy nerd, but I knew his bits and I remember his sets from the Tonight shows. Like, holy shit. And it was huge. I was thinking about it. I wanted to ask you because, we're kind of near the same age, but the HBO specials, those early young comedian HBO specials. Do you remember Jim Carrey's when he would do My Three Sons? And he would do all the faces, dude. He literally looked like his stand-up. Yeah. I remember seeing him just kill so hard and out of the box, and he was the type of cat that you were like, there's no way I could do something like that shit, man.
Yeah, nobody can do what Jim Carrey does. It's insane. Like, it's just perfect for In Living Color, to be in a sketch show. And then he just really broke out, because, of course, everybody embraces the white guy on a black sketch show. And
you can't say that. That motherfucker's funny as he is.
Oh, I know he is.
No, because they're not. Nobody's gonna give him a walk. You can't say that, dude. That Jim Carrey transcends all of that. Like he's just a natural born killer. Like hit that piece. Yeah. I'm just gonna say, you know what else touched me was Robin Williams' first special. Remember that HBO special? I just remember just being so that was there's no way I could do that. Like that was out of this world.
Yeah, but we can't ignore the fact that we live in a racist country, and that's part of why Jim Carrey broke out of that show. He was brilliant. He was very good, and they used him a lot, which worked out great for everybody because that helped make the show a hit. And Robin Williams is just so sad. Like every year on his birthday and on the day he died, just Twitter and social media just lights up with, just discussing how great he was and, quoting him and stuff. I was lucky enough to get to, meet him a couple of times, and he was a ridiculously nice man. So it's a shame that, mental illness can be so overwhelming,
Yeah, his story is wild and his career is amazing. Possibly, possibly top 10 American actors and stand-up, just a brilliant improviser and performer. And I only had one small conversation, but it was at a lesbian bar at some open mic in the Mission when I was starting out, and he was going on, and I'd maybe done it 2 years, but he was coming around San Francisco. I saw him at the Mock Theater, which is in the Mission District. And you're right, his aura was just pure kindness. It was humble and kindness and softness. And then it just built up and then it went off on stage. But yeah, I just remember I said, hey, I'm doing stand-up, and he kind of didn't want to talk to me. And he was like, oh, you do stand-up in San Francisco. Do you know Joe Klosick? And I was like, yeah, I know Joe Klosick. He's cool. And that was my conversation with Rob. That was it. He doesn't remember it, but but for me, that was like, that's like seeing Eddie Murphy. I don't know. I was born in 72. So that all that shit hit like 84, right when that time where you're absorbing pop culture, at 13, 14, 15, and you're kind of coming on your own and you're like, oh, that's the good shit. These guys are fucking lame, that type of thing.
Yeah. And then it just keeps shifting your entire life. When I was a kid, if you'd have told me, you love Woody Allen and Mel Brooks, well, one of these guys is going to turn out to be very, very questionable character. I wouldn't have known which one.
Yeah, I can honestly say I wasn't huge Woody Allen. Like, it was a little too, when things get over intellectual, like pseudo intellectualism, I bum out on, but joke writing and filmmaking, top notch, like awesome. But I can't tell you what Bananas was about, but I've seen Blazing Saddles. Like, that's one of the funniest films of all time. Like Mel Brooks's Young Frankenstein, how he directed, his tones, his textures, how hard he went in the paint. That guy, Mel Brooks is just pure comedy to me.
Yeah, and he's lived a nice life. He's not a creep.
Yeah, he's not a creep, made his money, he probably does questionable humor to this taste, but at the same time, it was always human to it. His shit, as grimy and rough or edgy as it was, it always had humanity and like super silliness, like how Blazing Saddles closes with a musical, it's just like, wow, it's out there, man. I love it. And that's like one of those flicks that I was going to say, like, people don't understand, you were in Fast Time as Ridgemont High, as you take a big fat bong hit. You were in one of the best American films. I don't know, art changes as time goes on. But for me, yeah, it definitely sits in the pocket as a great film. Does it still hold up for you?
Yeah. Oh, it's a really good movie. Like I'm just an extra in it. We need to say Unpaid Extra, who drove up from Los Angeles while I was still I probably was still in high school or maybe just starting junior college, and just drove up. And a friend of mine was paid to be an extra on that movie, and since I knew it was happening at the mall, they shoot all night when they shoot in the mall, so they can do it when the customers aren't there. And so it was the Sherman Oaks Galleria. And I just showed up with my friend one night and managed to, because they check everybody and get everybody's names, but somehow I managed to slip in there and be an extra. And
that's how you do it, Doug. Dude, there's nothing. I love this story.
They even gave me what I later learned more about as being an extra is if like you bring your own clothes or you're willing to smoke whatever they want you to smoke, a cigarette or whatever on camera. There's just different things that could happen where you would get a bump in pay. So even though I wasn't getting paid that night, I got a bump in pay because I, smoked cigarettes in the scenes because they wanted teenagers standing around smoking cigarettes. And I wasn't a cigarette smoker, so I don't do it very well. But you could see me in the background of a scene in the mall at the very end of the movie. But the movie itself is just me and the guy.
That is such a good story, Doug. I don't know. Listeners at home, he literally drove it, but you're right. Like, they do need extras, but if you want to do it, you just hanging out can get you in the door. And a movie set, there is like an etiquette. And if you know how to do the etiquette and you're cool, you know, sometimes I don't know about nowadays, but back then when there wasn't that hard of security and you knew somebody, that I mean, yeah, and then you walked on to one of the most, yes, one of the most classic films of all time,
Oh yeah,
even if you're
no,
in the background.
but I was gonna say, it just seemed like a absolute dick around. The movie did not seem like they were making a good movie at all. My friend was an extra in it for several nights, and so whenever he'd come home and we talk about it, we just imagine a movie that was just like Fast Times, beep, 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 Fast Times, beep, beep, beep. Like we just would make fun of that name and just how we just thought it was going to be a shitty teen comedy, and
And there was a billion of them at that time.
and then and then when it came out, it was fairly well received, but it wasn't like a smash hit or anything. And but it was very and to this day just very honest about like there's some unpleasant characters and some terrible behaviors in there that are pretty shocking for a teen movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks at it without with a very real lens. Did Cameron Crowe direct that? I know he wrote it. He didn't direct it. Was he?
He wrote it based on the movie's not about a kid going undercover at a high school, but the book is about him going undercover at a high school. He looked he looked younger than he was. So as a journalist and author, he decided to go back to his high school or a high school. I don't know if it was his high school, but he went to a high school and then wrote that book and then the screenplay. And then Amy Heckerling directed the movie. And she, of course, also made Clueless, which is another, her career has been kind of hit and miss, but between those two movies, she's got two of the, biggest classics in terms of capturing the lives of teenagers.
Yeah, those films are like pepperoni pizza. Like it's not fancy, but it's fucking it's just damn good in terms of, yeah, I saw Clueless just maybe 6 months ago at the drive-in in Brooklyn. They showed it on the screen and we had a blast. It just runs as a good, fun movie. And it's shot, and it also has heart, and you don't feel icky afterwards. It's just that director's cool. A lot of it comes from directors, like just whoever's tone is fucking set is like how the film turns out almost sometimes.
Well, again, I could not tell you who was the director when I was on set, because Amy Heckerling was, maybe is more about the editing or something, but she is a wallflower. It barely seemed like she was involved, but I wasn't there for very long. But that was just, my impression was like, I didn't feel like I was seeing somebody who's going to be an amazing director making classic movies. I was just like, this lady doesn't even. She barely seems to have a pulse. I mean, she's a very low key person.
Yeah, that's what in showbiz. A lot of times, the most powerful person in the room has you don't even know they're standing next to you, and in those moments you're like, because they're just, I don't know, some of those heavy cats have such a down-to-earth vibe, and that's how they get some shit done, I think, that they don't have as much ego, As a director, I don't think, if you can understand to not have as much ego and try to get the best out of the actors, is kind of the vibe you want to set. Like, I forget, doesn't the who are the brothers, the directors that are brothers?
Coen Brothers.
Yeah, the Coen Brothers. Somebody was telling my buddy Dan, he was telling me that they have a very Zen set. Like they're like kind of Buddhist, like it's just a very super Zen'd out set.
Yeah, I feel like
Carrey, he writes for Eric Andre, but we were talking and he was telling me like, yeah, those guys are super into Buddhism and like, just everything's just like simple, no ego, just like, let's get the best out of this fucking scene, everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you never hear stories of, I do not know what their personalities are. Even at award shows, they could not be more low key, and that one of them is married to Frances McDormand. She's a damn national treasure. She's like one of the best actors out there of any gender, and she's married to one of them, and so it's just a very, very artsy fartsy existence they live.
Yeah. But they smoke weed. Is that the word on the street, Doug? I don't want you to call anybody out.
I do not know that. I cannot say for a fact that the Coen brothers smoke weed. I mean, I like the idea of it, but I can barely even think of scenes in their movies where anybody smokes weed, but that doesn't necessarily mean they don't. But you think that would be reflected in the films a little bit.
Well,
I can't think of anybody.
Ford is secretly a weed head or was a weed head. I don't want to. I hate gossiping. I'm trying not to talk gossip. Oh,
who?
Harrison Ford.
Oh no, yeah, he's a big pothead. Yeah,
and he doesn't lean into it at all. Like
no, you only hear about planes.
It. What's that?
He crashes planes. He's been in multiple plane crashes where he was the pilot, and he's, I mean, I love weed, but I don't know. I don't think an old guy that smokes weed all the time is necessarily the best choice to be piloting a plane. I think they grounded him. I don't think he's allowed to fly anymore.
Yeah, he's getting up there. You got to do it to finally got to take the keys from people.
I mean, he just doesn't know all the knobs in the Millennium Falcon like he used to.
Yeah, but Han runs, renegade. That's the beauty of Han, man. He doesn't care about the law. He's about himself. He trusts himself, and he's going to run outlaw to the day he dies. That's Han Solo, man. He's not good or bad. He's just Han Solo. He's solo. He's running, but he is married to a chick, another actress.
Anyway, you could, you're opening a whole can of worms if you want to debate whether or not Han Solo is a good person.
But I want to ask.
They had to edit in Greedo shooting first to try to make Han Solo seem like a person who doesn't just murder somebody under a table.
Yeah. But he was dealing sketchy shit when he was a drug dealer.
He was
some sketchy drug dealers with hearts of gold.
Yeah. No, he becomes a much nicer person, and Greedo is a bad guy. I give you that, but I'm just saying, nerds.
Yeah, that dude was scary, and he was threatening him very harshly.
Nerds had a lot to say about that, and they still do.
I don't want to get into it. I got another thing I wanted to write down, and this one stoners are going to dig. You were in, and this goes to Brian Busain, who was one of the guys that first turned you on to weed, how the story goes. And I've smoked pot with Brian once, and he's awesome and amazing. But you guys, I forgot you were in Mr. Show, and I was looking at your IMDb, and I watched a lot of Mr. Show, but I was high, and it was back in the 90s. But you were in episodes with the dudes from Tool. One of your episode is Pussifer was too famous, or no, it was the Pussifer episode. You were in an episode with Tool, right?
Yes. Maynard Keenan was a big comedy fan, and so he would just show up at Mr. Show stuff, and eventually they just started putting him in, we used to do like live shows around different venues in LA, sort of practicing sketches and stuff. And there was all sorts of crazy ass comedy at that time. I used to see Will Ferrell a lot. He was in a group called Simpatico. It was him and two other guys, and they just wore these weird, it's kind of humor Will Ferrell's become known for, where he just wears this weird like jumpsuit that hugs his junk too much, and he just looks terrible in it. And two other guys dressed the same way, and they just jump around on stage, do a bunch of dumb tumbling. It's not difficult to do. And then occasionally yelling simpatico. It was the dumbest thing, but it was Will Ferrell, early Will Ferrell. So that was exciting that I got to be there for that. But for Mr. Show, as I was saying, Maynard from Tool was into it. So he would be, and another guy, now I'm not going to think of his name, Brian, I think, from a band called Green Jelly or Jello, depending on, before or after Jello got mad at them. He was also into it, so he'd be in stuff. But yeah, so he, Maynard showed up in some sketches. One time I got to go see at a theater up in Ventura, Tenacious D, Jack and Kyle opened for Tool in a theater, like like an old timey theater, like the Apollo or something, in Ventura, probably called the Ventura Theater or something like that. And it was super fun to see, Tenacious D and hang out with them like backstage and stuff, because they just sat around like singing all the time. And then Tool went on, and it was the loudest, most vibrating, intense concert of my life to that point, and then to this day. Like, Tool should be in very big arenas where there's room for all that noise to go somewhere.
Dude, they're so heavy. Yeah, it's like
so
super
heavy.
psych. They're the heaviest, deepest, just artiest. And yeah, that Tenacious D, I have to say, in Mr. Show, that was the impetus of me getting off the couch when I was 26 years old and being like, God, I got to get into fucking comedy. Something crazy is going on. I was just in DC. I'm in Washington, DC, where I was born and raised, but I was out of college and I was just I was working a sales job with a couple friends from college, and I always wanted to do stand-up. I was a creative writing major, but I was watching Mr. Show, and and it was the weirdest thing, when it came on HBO, and I always knew SNL, but the trippy thing, as we know, is stand-up. Stand-up kind of died in the 90s, so my 90s, and that's when you kind of first started out, and it was so hard for you, Doug. Like, I totally get, like Todd Glass, you guys are so funny. There's a reason that you guys are so funny and quick and your jokes are great, is because you guys came up during when stand-up just wasn't, that hot. And then Mr. Show happened, and I was like, there's a tone, like, that's cooler than I've ever seen comedy kind of platformed out. And then when Tenacious D, I mean, I love musical comedy and metal. I know metal really well, and they just blew me away, man. They got me off the couch. Like, I got to get into this shit. I got to go. Somebody's doing this.
Yeah, it was super fun to be around. I was like, mostly like an extra and a, friend of the show who would just come to all the tapings and hang around. And then by the time I moved up in the ranks and they started wanting to use me as a writer on the show, there was a couple of near misses, because Tenacious D was going to have a show for a little while, and there was going to be another season of Mr. Show. This was like a few years after the first show ended, and I'm not talking about the thing they did more recently. I didn't have anything to do with that, but there was a time when I was going to write on those shows, and they both, for different reasons, fell through. And that again kind of pushed me back out into kind of doing my own thing and doing stand-up and Last Comic Standing and Super High Me and all that stuff. Like, it just became.
Yeah, those writing jobs, dude, I'm doing packets now. And, I love it. And you just can't, like, especially Mr. Show got to be a hot fucking show. So if you got that, I mean, you would have been, that's really, like, that's the upper echelon of comedy writing at that time. Like, one of the best HBO shows that was out there. Like, that's a awesome gig. Like, that's a that's just whatever. But you probably wouldn't have, you wouldn't have done stand-up, you wouldn't have toured, you wouldn't have made your own movies, you wouldn't have done a trivia, you don't know how the path
goes. Who knows what would have happened? I don't know what would happen. I was just, the point I was just going to make, though, was just that, I've made at several junctures, like, I would have done those jobs, but also those jobs would have been, they wouldn't have lasted a long time, and that Mr. Show was supposed to be their last season, and who knows, Tenacious D might have been one and done. Who knows? But who knows how long it would have lasted or where it would have gone. But in general, I just sort of I did a lot of writing in my career, but I never really wanted to be like on staff on a show. I just sort of more or less flit in and out of things or write promos for the WB network. But
dude, you're one of the best joke writers out there, Doug. I mean, you're up. People give Mitch Hedberg, but you have great one-liners, a million of them, and you love the form of joke. Like, not to go comedy nerd because it's never that funny, but you do love the form of jokes. Like, you are. Yeah, I'm surprised you never got for a monologue, because you do write shorthand like all the time.
Well, I got tired of, I used to have long bits in my act, but I got tired of, I just started feeling like I was in a play or something. And, you can change the words around here and there and, try different things. But, essentially once you've decided, oh, this is a story in my act and I'm going to do it until I record it for a special, I just don't like that process. I don't care about it. Like I know I can do it and I have done it. So like, I'm trying to figure out other ways to do it. And like you said, the biggest focus I have is just on the joke, but also performance of the joke. I was just glad that my writing career kind of had fits and starts and never really became a thing. Because, and in some cases I chose, like I was like, well, I would rather just keep doing stand-up and auditioning for things and see what else I can make happen other than, being a writer. My friend Tall John, who a lot of people hear about all the time because he's also a good friend with Sarah Silverman.
Shout out Tall John.
Yeah, he and I used to, he and I wrote a bunch of stuff together. We'd get like, script deals and we'd write a sitcom and then we'd get a million notes and then we just never got a pilot made, but we, made money and we'd work well together. And
that's brilliant.
But it was looking, when the Sarah Silverman program came along, it was looking like the two of us would be like writing partners on that show. And I decided that I just didn't want to be in a writer's room all day, every day. And I still thought I, could get a career like on camera or do more stuff like, that I'm more in charge of. And then, it worked out okay, but that show was great. And, I got to be on it once and, I don't know what point I'm trying to make other than I need to take another bong rip.
Yeah, take another bong rip, my man. No, dude, stand-up is a trip. I was going to ask you because, when was the last time you did stand-up? Are you going, let's stay current, man. When was the last time you got on stage and what's the vibe? Are you going a lot? COVID? I'm dodging Delta. I've gone out a couple times, but I don't know.
Do you want to ask a few more questions? There's so many questions in there. I don't even know where to begin.
I know. I could talk to you for 8 hours, so I'm trying to get it all out. Sorry, Doug.
Yeah, but I just I can't answer all those questions.
When was the last time you did stand-up, buddy?
Yeah, the last time I did stand-up was a couple nights ago. Like, stand-up is wild. It's wildly back. Like, I can do as much of it as I want right now. I don't want to do a lot of it. I'm taking baby steps. But, like, Los Angeles had all these outdoor shows springing up because of COVID, and they lasted all last summer. And then we had a very mild winter. So there was even outdoor shows in the wintertime and then spring. And then now all the regular clubs are back open, but there's still all the outdoor places that have opened up, plus more outdoor places are opening. It's like, it's wild how much stage time you can get in LA right now, especially if you're like, you can walk in and go, hey, it's me. But, a lot of my spots are like scheduled and stuff. And I'm not really drop-in guy anyway. I don't really do that, but it's, and I can do as much road work as I want, but I'm, just easing back into it, doing like, last month I did like one road gig. This month I'm doing one. And then next month I've got like 3 things. And then, I'm just like progressively getting more active, but who knows where this is going, because the unvaccinated are just really running around unvaccinated. So
Vax it up, people, man. This is life or death, I love life. As you know, Doug, I love living. I love weed. I love talking to you. And
I love coffee.
Love coffee.
Cannabis.
Life.
Family.
Friends. Comedy.
Seinfeld.
Yeah, I like I was more Night Court, but Seinfeld's cool.
Holy shit, Night Court's coming back,
Dude, that was a great show. John Lithgow was dope, man. You got a Lithgow vibe, homie.
John Lithgow.
John Larroquette, that's what it is. Larroquette.
Yeah, John Larroquette was great on that show, and I think him and his character are coming back. You know, the judge has died. Harry Anderson died.
Who was a stand-up?
He was this magician stand-up. He taught me one of my favorite things that I do in diners if I want to horrify and disgust people. What you do is you pick up and you palm one of those little creamers, you know, that has the paper top.
Yeah.
You put it in your hand, and like you put it in this hand, right? And then you go, oh man, there's something wrong with my eye. And then take a fork off the table, and then jam it into the into the paper part, and it's all this white shit just starts shooting out of your eye, and everybody's horrified.
I love it.
It's really you gotta pick the right moments to do it. You can't just.
That's harmless. That's not fucking. That's harmless fun, man. That's great horror. Like I love that shit. Like I'm not into Jackass, but that's the classic.
It's safe. It's safe, Jackass. It's safe, Jackass. I've never hurt myself doing it. Although now that I think about it, like just even doing this with a fork, like jabbing it near my eye, I'm less comfortable now than I was in my youth. But like when I go out, you know how you end up at a diner in the middle of the night when you're out on the road doing comedy, you're with the other comics, and that kind of hijinks it never gets old because you know
dude,
you're
that
always,
kills. Oh,
you're
dude,
always,
at the diner over a tuna melt, that's gonna kill. You're gonna get the biggest laugh of your life.
You're always meeting new comics all the time, and they don't know Harry Anderson. They didn't learn that trick from him.
Nah.
I didn't know him either. I mean, I think I saw him once or twice, but yeah, I definitely saw him or introduced him because I used to early on in my career. One of the first places that hired me to MC was this place on the west side called Igbes, and the guy who owned it was very nice to me and he let like very new comics, he let them host if he saw something in them, and then eventually he'd start giving you spots. So that was like one of the main places that I not only cut my teeth, but like, remember earlier when I spoke of Louis Anderson, like I can remember every comedian who I admired at the time who would come through when I was hosting and would see one of my bits or my set and say something nice. Like all of those really stick with you, and they really move you forward.
Yeah, who was nice to you? Who gave you good vibes?
Dana Carvey.
Oh, the best,
nice.
The king.
Yeah, and another one, a guy I admired a lot before I got into stand-up, and I still do. He's legendary, but he's not as well known as some other comics. A dude named Rick Overton.
Yes.
Was super nice to me at Igbes one time because he
one of the best improvisers around.
Yeah, and he kind of broke down for me. He like said back to me, "Oh, I see what you're doing with your act. You're doing this and this and this, and it's these are all these are fresh. This is a good way to do what you're doing." So he was super nice. There was a bunch of because like I said, I'd be emceeing, so all these great acts would come through. But then one of the people that I really started like hanging out with just because he likes to hang and he's very nice to young comics is Bobcat Goldthwait. I ended up spending a lot of time with him, and me and Posehn and Goldthwait, the three of us wrote a movie script that never got produced. So we spent hours and hours together, the three of us writing this movie script. So it was fun, but then when it never got made and we never got any money for it, that was frustrating, but it was still just hanging out at Bobcat's house.
Dude, Nirvana's opening act.
Yeah, well, we went on that. Posehn and I got to go see the In Utero tour show at the San Diego Sports Arena, and we saw Baby Frances Bean backstage, and we saw
Courtney,
all those, and then Bobcat's close to that whole band. And so even after Kurt Cobain was gone, one time Posehn and I were in Seattle. This felt like a thing you do.
But did you see Kurt that night? Was Kurt there?
Yeah, Kurt was there walking around in his pajamas looking kind of out of it. But
that's when they were at the height of their fame. That's really hard. But I do bring that up because I think that's so cool that Bobcat did that. Even though he was a part of one of the goofiest comedies, Police Academy of the early 80s was a huge hit. And I saw it at the movie theater. I loved it the human beatbox dude, Bobcat killed. His character was awesome. Those movies, because I was like 10, 11, 12, was like the funniest fucking things ever. And then to go on and open for Nirvana is just fucking sick.
Yeah, well, they opened for Nirvana because Kurt Cobain was, as you know, a very troubled person. And apparently nothing made him happier than watching how savagely the audiences would treat Bobcat. Because Bobcat would host the whole show. So he'd come out, do some time, bring out Butthole Surfers, do some more time. They take a break, comes out, does some more, then brings on Nirvana. And everybody's just waiting for Nirvana for the most part the whole time. So they just scream at him when he's on stage, and that would make Kurt Cobain happy watching Bobcat eat it at every show.
Yeah, there's all these stories about people trying to open for the Ramones, and like they would get booed off in like 30 seconds. Like the crowd would be like, because it was like the more aggressive the music and the more rabid the fan, the more they don't want you there. And I've been in that situation in opening for an aggressive band, and shit went wrong. This guy like spit at me and told me to fuck off and all this shit. It was the worst gig. And you think you're going to be a rock star, but if they don't know you or don't really care and they just want to see their band, especially before social media.
That's like fans of anything, dude. It's not, rock and roll is not isolated to that. There's fans of knitting that are that intense when they show up at the Super Bowl of knitting. But but it's just that's the thing, is opening for somebody else can be, sometimes the crowd's in a good mood for what it is they're going to see, and you can kind of ride that wave, and you get lucky. But like opening for a band fucking sucks, because first of all, they never say there's going to be a comedian before the band. Like maybe in Vegas or something they do, but like everywhere else, it's just a surprise. And so everyone just stands there and, or sits there and continues talking amongst themselves like you're just, like background noise or whatever. And that's if you're lucky, because they could also actively hate you and keep yelling and get off the stage. Like you have to say, like right early on in your set, I've seen this come out of my mouth, and I've seen other comics do it too. You just have to be like, hey, I'm going to stand here and talk for 15 minutes. The band is not going to come out during that time, whether I'm talking or not. They're not coming for at least 15 minutes. So shut up and let me do my thing.
And sometimes you can turn them. It's not always. I mean, every night is a different gig. But what I was going to go with the positive, Doug, on this was like the opposite of that is opening for good comedians. Is like, that's when it's like an awesome crowd. If you're a good stand-up and the comic you're opening for is good, it's so much fun. Doug, you took me on the road. You're one of my favorite comics. I'm just being sincere. But yeah, opening for you was a blast. It wasn't even work because you're a great comic, and I just would have fun with your crowd. It was smart and silly and, and stonery. And the same was Mitch Hedberg, was like, those were the funnest. And Tracy Morgan, I've opened for all you guys. And I need that. I do headline and I'm going out there, but opening for cool comics rocks.
Yeah, it could be super fun. It's nice, nice way to, help other comics and, especially ones that are your friends.
Yeah.
It's not a completely broke system, but there's certainly a lot of aspects to it that are still unfair to. I'm doing a show tomorrow night in North Hollywood where I'm the only white person on the show, or I should say that I think there's a white woman, but I'm the only white male on the show, and I was just like, it looks really weird, but at the same time, I've been on some shows where everybody's white, and that also is, I'm hoping everybody figures out how to diversify it all, because the audience is there for it. Whatever any person is, whatever minority you are, you want to be represented in a humorous way.
Yeah, man. I think it's going to be a good night. I like to mix it up. I like going in front of different crowds. It's always fucking different energy, It's stand up. I don't know. I love opening for Tracy. I opened for JB Smooth at Bonnaroo. It's just like, if you open for the same type of cats all the time or the same type of crowds, it's just, I don't know. I come from San Francisco, and you weren't a real comic in San Francisco until you could play the punchline and the mission. Like, you just had to be an all around good comic. Are you going to play the punchline anytime soon, Doug?
I'm doing Doug Loves Movies at the Sacramento Punchline.
Oh, the best.
In next month in August. And but I don't have anything on the books in the city yet, because there's some things in the works, that it's pretty competitive up there in the Bay Area with all their festivals and whatnot. They have Sketchfest is probably going to be back next January. And so I usually do that. So that's why it's kind of a weird period figuring out if I could go there between now and then.
Yeah, doing shows inside theaters. I know, man. I've done some stand up, but it's been hit and miss. And I need to get you out of here. We're running. It's over 45 minutes, but I wanted to say I've been having a blast when I do go up. But I also think I love how the world's evolving. Like, weed is getting legal and everybody's podcasting. What do you think podcasting is playing with stand-up now? Don't you think it's a kind of a different game on stage? Like, or are you still going, dude, I'm just writing jokes and I'm gonna go up there with a piece of paper, spit out some jokes, and then do some crowd work and do a couple classics?
Yeah, I don't. It's a process of getting up there and doing. When you went months and months with, I do occasional shows during the pandemic, but like now I'm finally, maybe going to be doing 3 or 4 spots in a week, and then maybe headlining somewhere on the weekend, and but like it's still just like. I know lots of comics do that thing where they build up an hour and then they tape it, make a special, then they start from scratch. So like for the first few weeks, they tell the audience, hey, I'm working out stuff, trying to, build up for the next hour. But I'm just like, I feel like I just want to be like writing new stuff all the time and getting rid of stuff whenever I get sick of it. Yeah. At my own pace, individual jokes. Not like this hour, I did this hour. Goodbye, hour. I don't see the point of that at this point for me, But that's the great thing about it is like there's different approaches you can take at this time, and podcasting. It's interesting, how every comedian now has a podcast. So, like, which one is helping? Which one's feeding the other? Which one's helping the other one more? Podcasting and stand-up. And I think people have been stuck inside for so long that helped podcasting in a lot of ways. But now that people are going back out, they're anxious for the live experience. So that's helping live comedy shows. Because almost every show I've done in the last month or so, the audience has just been in a great mood just because they're doing it, just because they're excited to be out. And in a lot of cases in a safe environment. There's this place in the middle of Hollywood that's just it's a venue that's just it has no roof. It's just outside, and so they've been killing it because all the big names that are in town just cruise by and do spots. A lot of Bill Burr action. Bill Burr's a really big deal now.
I know. Well, he's done this podcast. I've known Bill before he popped, man. He was a strong New York. He was one of the top New York comics. But I knew him before the big O&A thing. We did spots at the Boston Comedy Club. But yeah, he's amazing. It's just stand-up is blowing up right now. That's what it's not. I don't know if it is. I don't want to jinx it. But you're right. I always look at like anything bad, there's always something good out of it. And I guess the good out of it could be, audiences are going to be fucking awesome for the next year and a half if we can dodge this fucking Delta and get these fucking. I don't want to get too mad, but man, just look at your brother and sister, everybody. I love life and we all have family, and we in America, you're supposed to go for your dream. You're supposed to your pursuit of happiness. You know, that's what we're all about, you know, and going for your dream and pursuing happiness. You're fucking cock blocking our happiness. You're cock blocking your happiness. You're cock blocking the world's happiness. So, I mean, you know, it's just fucking, you know, smarten up. Look at the fucking stats, brah.
No, but that's look at, you know, anybody can look at whatever stats they want to see.
I know. And and anytime I'm you can't tell anybody. So you got to do it by example. And my example is I'm vaccinated. I got no problem with vaccinated. I think life is a gift. I know death is going to happen. I got no problem that it's going to happen, but I want to ride this wave my way, you know, not my way, but just try to ride it with quality. You know, we all want to die in decency and live life to the fullest every second that we can, you know, and it's like, oh, you're going to throw a fucking damp rag on this shit? But good shit happens. We get the podcast and weed's getting legal.
There's a perfect summary of this. How long's it been?
It's been an hour, Doug. I love you, brother.
It's been an hour. Now I gotta go.
You gotta go.
But thanks, Rob. This was fun.
Thank you, Doug. Thanks for doing it. I love catching up with you, man. This is a blast. I appreciate it.
I'll talk to you soon.
I'll talk to you soon. Everybody check out Doug on his website and Twitter. He's hilarious. Peace.
Bye.
Bye.